everyone. Welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Varsha.
I'm Jarrod.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris.
And this is a sci-fi podcast where we talk about sci-fi stories in all their forms, although maybe we'll do some other non-sci-fi stories occasionally. Today we're talking about the last half of Ranged Light, which is the first part of Acceptance, the third book of the Southern Reach series by Jeff Vandermeer. I think I misspoke. I think the first one was Ranged Light, then Fixed Light. That I have that right. So Ranged Light, Fixed Light. We're going to the end of Fixed Light. Next week, we haven't talked about it, but I guess we'll go to chapter 16. Anyway, half of whatever's remaining for next week. And the short story pick for today is Mechanopolis by Miguel de Unamuno. We are reading our way through the big book of science fiction. So the short story for next week is called The Doom of Principal City by Yefim Zozulia. I think that one also is...
Bravo!
Very nice. Very nice.
I mean, I don't agree with it, but I think it's amazing.
Wait, how would you pronounce it?
I have no idea, but it's probably not that. There you go. I've just covered all of our bases.
Yes, tell us how to pronounce it correctly in the comments. So yeah, I guess we'll start off with discussing the portion that we read of Acceptance, which I apparently can't get straight in my head. Yes, Fixed Light was the second bit. Thanks for holding that up, Steve. And yes, where did we leave off? We started off with the director again, right? Sorry, Jarrod, you were saying?
Oh no, I thought we started off this week with the Lighthouse Keeper.
Oh, was Lighthouse Keeper?
Oh yeah, we did, yeah.
To be fair, we are a little scattered because I screwed everyone up, so that's why we're all a little messed up.
Yeah,
it's a very fluid story. So yeah, it's kind of like that.
We don't need help being scattered. We're all...
Yeah. I will also take responsibility for scattering because I had all afternoon to finish my reading, but I finished like 3 minutes before we started record.
I knew it. I told Chris that.
Yeah, that's why you were 10 minutes late.
Okay, first of all, I was 3 minutes late, so I was reading up to the time that we started recording.
Look, 3 minutes in real world time is 4 years in Area X, as we found out. So, you know.
Oh, jeez, that's right.
So the rest of you are in Area X?
Yes.
Yeah, and we're all duplicates as well.
But did you kill the original?
No.
Did you?
I wouldn't do that. I keep my original.
To get back on track, though, in general, I have no idea where to start with this because it's sort of all over the place because of that reason. We have the multiple timelines of the Lighthouse Keeper, Ghostbird, of the director. You have then these additional characters that get put in about the questions about Whitby, about Grace that comes into it, then about the timeline. And then by the time you even get to part 2, it's another whole thing altogether. And it's like, oh my God, there's just...
Yeah. Part 2 is another whole thing. Like another...
Yeah.
Like, what a left turn. But...
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm sort of feeling a bit overwhelmed towards the end of part 1 of... like what is happening. We're in 3 books of this now, and I'm like, right, come on. Give me something else. There do seem to be a lot of answers, but they're also not answers, if that makes sense. They are just other bits of information.
Yeah, I think one nitpick, like I have loved the series so far, and I feel like I'm nitpicking now because it's answers time. And one thing that stood out to me is that we have all the answers we're getting were answers that were already teased, and in some sense they were like it's more confirmation of things that we already kind of sort of knew rather than new information, which is fine. But the nitpick I have is that they're all things that the biologist guessed, right? For no particular reason.
Hmm.
And it's sure she considered alternative options in some cases, but in some cases she seemed certain somehow. And almost all of her certainties have been justified or turned out to be true. Like the fact that, well, people turning into animals. I, I guess it's true because we saw that Reed monster, who is the previous expedition psychologist. Like, sure, they're guessing, but that seems to be true. The lighthouse keeper, the crawlers, the lighthouse keeper turned out to be true. So, I mean, it is. This is what we already knew it was, and it was the person who was guessing's first guess. There is an explanation we could get for it, which is that, the brightness is giving her all these answers and making her certain for all of these. But in terms of like solving a mystery, I I'm not necessarily pleased with the fact that the first guess she had is the answer in many of these instances.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Well, okay. Well, don't tease us. But
No, I'm glad you put it that way, because I couldn't put my finger on it, like, because there was so much happening at the end of this section, and I was still a little disturbed, but I couldn't put my finger on why. And I mean, we still have plenty left to go in the book for answers. It's, we're only a little over halfway here, and we got to get into part 3, but
Yes.
oh.
but but maybe because I read it so fast, but I couldn't help but read it fast because it lends itself to that kind of reading.
Mm.
And I was more entertained by the lighthouse keeper story, and what because that happened in the past, and I was thoroughly engrossed with that, and I guess I kind of overlooked that Ghostbird's contribution to the solving of the mysteries, whether or not it was because she had that inner light, like you said, which was kind of just giving her the, I don't know, experience or clues that led to insight. So that's interesting. I really didn't focus on that part of it, but there's a lot of different avenues to focus on here too. So that's not surprising, I think.
Yeah. Chris, you were saying something?
I think the biologist Slice Ghostbird sort of alludes to this. She isn't sure whether the light, or the biologist isn't sure whether the light is giving her the answers and giving her the insight, or whether it's holding her back, or what. Like, I actually really love the section where she goes, she can't actually tell after being on that water so long what's normal, like wildlife, and what is weird at a certain point, and she doesn't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, whether that's an outside influence or her acclimatization or what it is going on. And I think I sort of feel like that reading it. You know what I mean? Like, you can sort of look at everything and being as, oh God, that's really weird. Or you could look at it and go, actually, things like the time dilation explain a lot of it. Now, if you know what I mean, if you see how extreme the time dilation is, then a lot of the like weathering, aging, all of that kind of stuff, well, that's completely explained away now in a lot of ways. And as long as you accept that people turn into animals or turn into things, again, that's sort of explained, but it also doesn't seem to matter, if that makes sense. I don't know whether the answers, especially in this section, and again, it might just be this section or otherwise, just feel like, and what? It sort of feels like, yes, that's an explanation for that, but it doesn't make it interesting, or doesn't explain actually what's happening or how it happened in some ways. They sort of allude to the 2 lighthouses, etc., as being sort of like portals or ways in and out of things. But I don't know. I just found the whole thing like it would be 1 step forward, 2 steps back, like it's been a lot of the time. Take, for instance, Saul, right? He opens out about the fact that he has the slither that came in through his gloves, and he gets examined, and he gets the advice, oh, you just eat better, get more sleep. It's exactly the same solution for everything you go to the doctor with, and the doctor really hasn't got a clue what's wrong with you. He just goes, hi, and how's your diet? How's your alcohol intake, etc.? All of that kind of stuff. And it's... okay, comes away from that, and again, we're stopped sort of midway here. It doesn't seem to have done anything, if you know what I mean. Even though it would appear he's opened up about a lot of this stuff in ways that people haven't throughout the story, like the biologist about the spores, about the psychologist about her past, all of that kind of stuff, and yet it didn't make any difference.
I think part of it is what makes this confusing is because all the different timelines. It does seem like a Lovecraftian type of thing where everything's happening. So that was hard for me to keep track of, and I didn't really understand what was happening when. But I do think the Ghost Bird knows more than we think she does. I think she's being directed, or she knows, because when they went to the island, Control Out told her, well, let's wait because it's going to get dark. And she's, no, well, I know what's behind, kind of like, I know what's behind us, so we can't be here. We have to leave. So there seems like this impending doom where she knows what's about to happen. And I do have a theory. I'm not sure. I'm sure you guys caught this too, but I don't want to jump too far ahead. But when it was raining tadpoles, right? And the tadpoles are going into the soil. And they asked, well, I wonder what that will be. And there are some mentions to Earth and to the damage that humans do, and kind of the environment, chasing off the natives and kind of reclaiming the land. I do think that it's like a Mother Earth kind of thing, and it's like an egg, and the tadpoles are like sperm. So that's kind of the way I took it. That there's like a rebirth happening, and humans aren't part of the plan.
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting.
Because we don't have because that, like Chris was talking about, answers, but we still don't have any answers about the origins of Area X. All we have is we have answers about people's past and stuff like that. But that's an interesting theory, that it's something that's being reborn or created now as a new ecological system, so to speak, or a new birth of something. Could be alien, maybe, but we don't know yet.
Did I misread it, or did they make a reference to the tunnel being it came from the sky? It kind of alludes to that a little bit, they saw it in the sky, or the stars moved or something. Like, so I kind of wondered if it fell from the sky, and this is like either it came from space and it's chasing the natives, it's expanding and kind of claiming it as its own, or it's like I don't know. I don't know if I may have misread that. So
no, there was some strange stuff like that, and there is this idea of the stars and the solar things kind of changing on people all the time, and what's real, what's reality. That was part of that section with the biologist again, which is like, which is which? Is it all the same thing? Is it important? Is it, or what I was saying? Like, what lens is she looking through? Is it the light that's taking control over? Especially because it's sort of hinted that is a life form in some ways, because pain hurts it and it recoils away. I again really like that aspect of it. But yeah.
Well, how does that tie into? Because when Saul and Charlie were talking, they had mentioned that this is the forgotten coast that had suffered for a decade or two from like lacks of regulations, and it's an unincorporated area, and in this wilderness hides its share of rotting stuff. This is like before Area X, right? So how does that information tie into what Area X is now? No answers. No.
Well, that's kind of why I thought that like it was unregulated and the land was being abused, or the land was being destroyed, and this is like a rebellion of sorts. like
Mm.
the Earth is rebelling or it's fighting back. And just like we see the humans see the creatures in Area X is the same way the environment sees us. And we're like we're like invading, we're destroying, we're conquering, and it's fighting back.
Hmm.
And it's changing. It's basically eradicating humanity because it's turning people into animals who are part of the ecosystem, who contribute to the larger ecosystem, and they're not led by greed or the desire to conquer and destroy the way humans can be. And I'm just kind of rambling, but that's
No,
kind
I
of
like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Where lies the strangling fruit that came from the hand of the sinner? I shall bring forth the seeds of the dead to share with the worms. That was
Hmm.
the quote from Saul,
The pastor.
the preacher. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's that. Yeah, you could be dead on there.
Yeah. And we again, I think at the start of the book we thought this was definitely pre-Area X, but I think this is very much as Area X is taken over. Like there's definitely signs that change is starting to evolve. Again, sort of probably between the island and the two lighthouses being the lenses and the way through, but to be discovered, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think we're seeing Area X forming like in these chapters, right? The first Lighthouse Keeper chapter, for instance, to your point, Steve, about what you're saying about the tunnel or the creature in the tunnel coming from the sky. I found this line. But Saul, as he walked among them, had the sense that they existed somewhere else, and it was only some hidden pull, like a celestial riptide, that drew them to manifest in that place, while the darkened tower of the lighthouse rose shrouded in a spiral of shadow and flame. And then a few paragraphs after that, he sees that the lighthouse is now a tunnel with um, yeah, inside the lighthouse, Saul found not stairs leading up, but a vast tunneling into the earth, an overwhelming spiral that wound down and down. So I think, yeah, I agree with this reading of it, that like because it's coinciding with how he's seeing the stars change in the sky, and and
Mhm.
that's followed by this image of the lighthouse turning into the tunnel that's digging into the ground. um yeah, I think we're watching the process of Area X being formed, not any closer to what Area X is, but yeah, I also like that it's the planet fighting back in some way. That I think the environmental themes we talked about
Mhm.
the last couple of times, I think that makes sense, because especially with the whole pristine wilderness and bits of Area X that come out into the human world, um, make it cleaner, or they have in the last expedition. I think that makes a lot of sense. So,
Agreed.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
The whole tadpole thing, that was like that, and the way that they burrow into the ground, into the soil, and it's kind of like a yeah. I don't want to. It reminds me of another book that we may or may not be reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to think about what parts in which.
Something that fell from the sky.
Oh no. Okay,
Oh,
remind
yeah.
me afterwards.
Yeah, I'll tell you after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the Saul storyline sort of didn't go anywhere in the section that we read anyway. The psychologist director storyline sort of didn't seem to go anywhere either, other than this question of Whitby. Again, we come back around this and the relationship with Laurie. I have a big question about Gloria Cynthia, right?
Mm.
Why would Southern Reach or the Central not want somebody who came from inside Area X? Like, surely that would be a positive. She said she had to hide it and bury it so that she could get into Southern Reach, but surely any kind of scientific method of exploration would be looking. Actually, we have literally a control subject here to come and talk from, even with the compromise, surely that would have been all to the advantage of it, rather than being Laurie using it as a blackmailing tool for her, to say, look, oh, I'll get you in, but you're going to owe me for doing
Yeah.
that.
I'm sorry, Varsha, go ahead.
I was saying I had the exact same question. Why is that something that he needs or can hold over her head? Does he just have her convinced? Like, was she naive when she applied for the job? That she'd believe when he told her that this is some negative that shouldn't be revealed, and like she fell for it? Or is that genuinely a problem for Southern Reach somehow? Is it just a manipulation mechanism, or is it something that actually is a problem for them for some strange reason?
I think if you approach it from a scientific standpoint, where you approach it from a from gathering information, from learning, from all these different. I think it makes sense to have someone with the background in there, with someone who knows the layout, who know. But the way that they're presenting the Southern Reach and government in general, which I agree with, that they're the biggest thieves and that they manipulate, they pull the strings. I don't think they want anyone with an emotional connection to Area X who can either know more than they do and somehow have the upper hand in what they want to do, or they don't want anyone who won't follow orders because they have that emotional connection to Area X. They want neutral people who they can control, or blank slates who they can kind of pull their strings and make sure that they follow through with the mission or the orders, and not anyone who will deviate from that because she may have an emotional connection to the lighthouse, and if they want to do something, or the people they find there, maybe they're worried that if she finds someone who she knew before who's managed to survive, she may not follow through with whatever they want her to do. So that's kind of the way I assess from a scientific standpoint. It makes total sense. But if you look at it from a business, from someone who wants to take advantage of Area X or to control it, then you want people you can control, not people who may not follow through with what the orders are, the mission.
Makes
But
sense.
don't listen to me.
I mean,
I always listen to you, Steve.
Yeah.
You're the only one.
Also, also, we got to remember that we're getting that weird point of view from her perspective, and so I'm still not sure how to process the second person type thing.
Yeah,
That was really strange.
Yeah, and so are we supposed to take that as, because you're still only given a certain amount of information. It's not like if it's a true second person, I don't know, it feels like you should be able to know more as if from a second person point of view, and we don't know more. We're still flummoxed, and we're still wondering how much of this information we're getting in that viewpoint is genuine. And I just didn't feel that worked in that case. If it was first person, you could lay it off. You could put the blame on it's that person's point of view only, and there could be a bigger story here, like with the biologist. And but with second person, I just feel like we're supposed to know more, and we don't. And it threw me off a little bit. So I'm not sure how much of like what she was worrying about with the government is consistent with what actually happened, and the same thing with the government's process for getting people in here. And because we've already seen that over time, the government seemed to, other than what's his name, Lowry, this place kind of has gotten run down and gotten no funding and kind of been the second fiddle and stuff like that of other government stuff. So was her concerns for that going into that position actually a real thing, actually justified? I don't think I know the answer to that.
I think we've been warned. I think we are warned after book 1 by our friend Parmita and some others, but that every book has its own, and I think Dan mentioned it too. Every book has its own kind of style, and I think this book has it seems more impersonal in some ways. It seems like we're, like you mentioned, Jarrod, about the second person. It feels very distant. I don't feel as close to the characters specifically. I think, and I think that's intentional, but I would wonder why that decision was made, and maybe it'll make sense to us eventually. But yeah, it does feel a little strange. I do think some of the characters, like the Whitby, and they're just not. I don't know. I just can't really sink my teeth into them. They're not very intriguing for me. I don't know. They haven't drawn me in the way the other characters have.
Yeah, because Control is still very intriguing. I think.
Yeah.
The character, but he's not really in it that much so far. A little bit, but not as much as the other ones. And then of course in part 2 we get all biologists again, which is pretty cool. That's another subject, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the second person narration, it just keeps on prompting the question, like, who is the second person? And in typical style for these books, there only seem to be a handful of possibilities. Like, it doesn't seem like it could be anybody. You're literally talking about 2 or 3 possibilities for who this is. And again, you're trying to marry that up with, well, why is this in the second person? Like, well, even from a authorial choice or a narrative point of view, why? It seems like it should be important in some way, but like, I'm almost a sucker for the unnecessary character. Like, who are the unnecessary characters in this book? Right, the mum's an unnecessary character. The SNSB are unnecessary characters. It seems at the moment. I can't remember what the biologist called them, but she had a great name for them. I thought that was
the something brigade. What was it?
Yeah,
Seance and Science Brigade.
Yeah, the biologist called them the Secret and Surveillance Brigade.
Surveillance Brigade. That was a great name for it. But again,
no, Bandit. Sorry.
Well, like you're saying, Chris, like to the second person, it's like one of the lines in here is the story you and Whitby have decided on. Well, wait a minute. I didn't decide anything about Whitby, so that there's a certain disconnect there, you know. And I'm still, I want to find out a reason why he did that, and I hope we do by the end of the book. But I'm, I think we're all kind of trying to wrap our head around that.
Yeah. No, I think the characters that you called out as unnecessary, Chris, I feel like they'll have all the remaining answers. Maybe.
Well, that's the hope, but again, they have to, because literally, why do they exist otherwise? I mean, that's literally my whole point here. Is like, they must have a lot of the answers, but to Steve's point, it's very hard to get invested in because we spent no time in their heads, and it's very hard to know what their motivations are. And I think because that hasn't come, the answers are going to come from there, and rather from the bits that we know Controller is holding back. We know the director's holding back. We know that Saul's holding back, and we know that the Ghostbird's holding back. If the answers came from there, maybe that would be, I don't know. It just feels like, again, I'm a little bit lost is the wrong word, but I'm sort of like, there's too much going on here, or too many possibilities. Sorry.
You said it, I didn't.
Yeah.
He's lost the wrong word because we just introduced an island that apparently is sentient.
As it turns out, the lost metaphor or simile is so bang on the money here that it's, I mean, I can't help but feel the same way about this that I did about a lot of Lost when I was watching it. It's like, you wanted the story to kind of come to a point rather than expand outwards in some ways. And while that's sort of fun, it sort of makes for a frustrating read sometimes, in terms of, like, we're getting answers, but then you're just introducing other crap that it's the button, that's all that stuff with about in the past. You know, you're just more stuff. We've got the lens. The lens was this one. We've got 2 lenses. Why are there 2 lenses? They're communicating with each other, and we're not worried about 2 islands, or the island and the lighthouse. It's the lens. Oh God.
Lost is a loaded word.
Yeah. would you say the central mystery of the series is what is Area X? What the heck is up with
Yes.
it? I
Yeah.
do feel like we're heading towards, I don't know if we'll get a complete answer, but some sort of answer to it, because we're literally seeing Area X form. But yeah, whether or not that will be a satisfactory answer remains to be seen.
My fear is that we sort of already have the answer that we're going to get.
Hmm.
I sort of
Okay.
think that we've got most of what we're going to get about where Area X or what it is, because I think I feel like I sort of know already. You know what I mean? It's been told enough in enough ways without kind of being on the money about Mother Earth fighting back. But if, say that was the final revelation, be kind of like, is that it? Yes, that's sort of satisfying, but also okay. We probably didn't need 3 books to get
I
there.
have a question. When did, because when a psychologist or the director went into Area X with Whitby, when did that happened before the biologist's expedition,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So she knew that people were duplicated or cloned or whatever. And did she know that before she went into? Did they know that? Did the Southern Reach know that about the expeditions before the biologists went in?
I
don't
think so.
remember.
Yeah. They had, assuming that as director, she had access to the footage from the first expedition that showed the doppelganger face to face, right? The leader
It
of the
did.
first
Okay.
expedition.
Right. All right.
There was footage of her yelling at her dupe. And yeah, so they were aware of the fact that that was one of the reasons that I was like, why do you keep sending expeditions when you don't know what's coming back out?
You don't know what's real, and also the fact that she ended up like one of the Whitbys dies, and it might be the real Whitby, it might not be
Yeah.
the real Whitby. We sort of
Yeah.
think we have an answer to that.
That was why I
By
asked. Yeah.
yeah. She seemed to be sort of okay with it, if you know what I mean, as if that was part of, oh, this is what happens here.
Yeah. I have many questions about Lowry v. Whitby, but before we move on, I wanted to address your point, Chris, real quick. I don't think the answer will just be that Earth is fighting back because of the time dilation and the stars and like the different
Yeah.
location. Like, I think it is you're fucking up the environment and you need to go, but not in this planet. It might be some sort of, I don't know, maybe it's an alien intervention or like some external invasion that's like, yeah, we'll keep the nice things out of here and humans need to go or something like that. I doubt it is like the actual planet fighting back. That mainly because of the time dilation and the stars. But yeah, that needs to be explained.
Yeah.
So, but Lowry and Whitby. So Whitby had what Control noticed as I think it's Whitby. I think we can conclude that it's Whitby at this point. Had a rotten honey smell coming around whenever Control was around. He noticed that sort of smell around him. And what's her name? Cynthia / Gloria
Gloria /
notices,
psychologist / director.
Notices something on Laurie's breath about. It seems similar in description. She doesn't compare it to honey, but it seems very similar in this. His breath is sweet, too sweet, as if something's on the verge of rotting inside him. Rotted honey, something too sweet. So I guess Lowry also, is that telling us that Lowry is also a duplicate? If that is the case, why is he, okay, first he's sending expeditions in, to what end? And secondly, why is he so angry at Gloria for having gone in? And what is up with that?
Speculation time.
You have some ideas.
I mean, it's the same one I had a couple of episodes ago insofar as she's the only person that's come inside out in the first place. And it does create the idea whether the person out was ever a duplicate or otherwise. But maybe something happens, and again, this is speculation based on Bell, just a ghost bird. There's something changes about the nature of that person in a predictable enough way when the duplicate is created that you could predict what change the person's going to have, if that makes sense. So, like, if conspects or theories or whatever it is, if you were to do that for Whitby, he became the terroir, if that makes sense, or whatever way you want to put it. When he came back out, that was what his duplicate kind of became. That kind of, he tried to create that within the facility or otherwise. So maybe it's something to do with that. And if Laurie's come out and she's coming in and out, there's going to be more duplicates of her that he knows what they're going to do, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So how they're going to behave or how they're going to change or whatever it is. But maybe it was also the fact, as we discovered, that they took 2 items out of Area X, smuggled 2 items out of Area X. That one we knew about, which was the plant, but I don't think we knew that the phone came out of there. And more specifically, that the technology was a mobile phone, which again, from Saul's time, doesn't seem not likely. So where did the mobile phone come from? Either it's Henry or Suzanne's, possibly. But again, where's that technology coming from? And that kind of where he's quizzing her and asking her, well, what happened in there? Tell me. And she's like, it's all in the report. And he knows that there's more going on there, and he can't predict. He doesn't. He's lost control of the situation because he's a control freak in some way.
This is the thing, though, about these kind of stories when there's so many timelines happening all at once, is that you can explain away something like the cell phone. Where it's like, oh, it came from this timeline, and the time moves differently here, and so that's the thing about these kind of stories, is you can kind of cheat on things like that, which is, I guess, good if you're creating it, but a little frustrating for the rest of us.
Yeah, it has to also be from some of the. It could also be from some of the expeditions, right? If Saul's time didn't have that technology yet, I don't think it did. It was must. Yeah, I don't think we got a timeline. I don't know why I'm thinking 80s, but but some of the expeditions in the beginning took what do you call it? Cell phones, like took technology in and had it handed back to them. So it could be from any of the expeditions too.
So it could be quite possible that the cell phone is linked directly to Laurie. I mean, that could be a thing, and he knows of its presence out there, but he can't find it, or because it's bugs or whatever aren't working. Like that again creates another load of possibilities about. Again, we said it last week. Who Laurie is, why he's in the position he is, it feels like a very key question to be answered.
Yeah.
Was anyone else surprised by the description of Laurie? Because between Control's jokes about comparing the central voice to a megalodon, and just how Laurie was an all-round ass. I had him imagined as one of the berserk eggheads, but so for context, Jarrod, in Berserk, whenever there's a hyper evil dude, he's drawn with this like giant egg head, and that's like from looking at them that they're evil. So I that's how I had him imagined in my head, and then they have this description of this dapper, blonde haired, tall person. I was like, that is not Laurie in my head at all.
Oh, really? Because I had him as a James Bond type myself.
Oh, interesting.
So that's because every time, because he was the head of the head of the agency, and so that's it's a spy agency in my point of view, and so that's how I pictured him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I do I think the focus. So there are 2 mysteries. I think I was maybe not very right earlier. There are 2 connected mysteries that we're solving. One from the first book is like, what the heck is going on with Area X, and the other is what the heck is going on with the Southern Reach, which is what I guess these sections with Laurie and the director are telling us, because we have answers to questions like, why was Grace so mean to Control, and because of the relationship they have with Laurie. And I guess Grace noticed that Control has been hypnotized by him, and he has this like super creepy facility with mirrors and stuff, which that is fascinating given the fact that he has been to Area X and has come out from it. And it also begs the question, is the biologist unique in that she has retained awareness of her past life, and like she's not completely infiltrated by Area X and has become a completely different person. Like she is a different person with like a vague awareness of having lived another life. It seems like Ghostbird, I mean. But is that true for all the doppelgangers? Do they retain awareness, or are they just, or is Laurie just pushing Area X's agenda in some form?
Well, didn't her husband have awareness of his past life, but he just didn't react the
Mm,
same? He didn't respond in the same manner, but he
yeah.
still knew kind of
Mhm.
where he's supposed to go and who he was. And um, I'm just trying to remember here. I'm not
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
sure, but you're right. She seems to have a next level type of awareness that we've previously to what we've seen, I guess.
Hmm.
Right. So the question is, what is different about the biologist? Right. That she was sent in there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I assumed, we haven't really talked about this, but I assumed that it was something to do with her personality, because obviously Control went on a number of words in her response and all of that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it might be that it's a lot more obvious than that, which is that she had a husband that is still there. Essentially, she's the first person to go back on an expedition that has a route or a place in there, in the same way that the director does. The two people that he does not want to go back, or that he didn't know about, was the biologist and the thing. And if the director knows something about having a route or a, something to pull you back in through there, because we actually, as it's found out, we get a last will and testament of the biologist, because she starts mapping out her experiences and her understanding of the world that now Control and Ghostbird are going to find in some way, and Grace has found in order to solve this. And there's no doubt that that little triangle of people have told us more about Southern Reach than the 30-odd expeditions that have went in time after time after time again, in terms of, like, they know what they're looking for. Like, she knew what she looked at. Ghostbird knows exactly where to go the second time that she's in, and very, like, she's making a beeline for it in a lot of ways, whereas nobody else has done that before, apart from the director, who's went back in the same way. So I'm sort of getting the feeling that the only thing that was different about the biologist was nothing to do with her personality or skill set or anything. It's the fact that she had a nearly like a lighthouse of her own to head for.
Well, maybe she was already exposed to Area X, because her husband came back and, like, they lived their life. They had sex, they like all this stuff. So maybe she had exposure from his doppelganger, and so she already built up something that was going to retain. Whenever her doppelganger was created, it was going to retain more because of the exposure in the original biologist already.
It's a great point.
And is that what give her? Well, again, I made the point last week. We thought that the spores give her a lot of the protection, but it might actually have been
maybe she already
the
had it.
husband.
Yeah.
And she seemed to like it there too, and she didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
So it'd be a good person to have on your side. Area X's perspective.
Did we get the sense in this section that everybody is subject to the brightness somehow? All the people who changed from Area X, do we have reason to think that?
It's happening Saul as well, isn't it? Like, it's not just it's happening Saul, and we assume from the slither, whether it's the spore, the slither, that's where the brightness comes from. Maybe this kind of ingesting of something in some way. But they're the only two cases I think that we have so far. We might find out about Henry and Suzanne again. Where did they go? Where did the mum go? There are a couple of people that we are no accounting for in any of the timeline here. But the people's point of view that we've let inside their head have been Saul and the biologist, that they've ingested something from Area X and they have had this luminescence and this light.
Yeah.
Did the director psychologists have any of that sense of brightness at all? I don't recall.
Did we see any in the first chapter when she lay dying? Supposedly dying?
No, I don't think so.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't recall it.
Yeah, me neither. So maybe
is different.
Yeah. And do they have to go into the tunnel to be like to have a picture taken so that they can be doppelgangered? Is that a thing?
Oh,
To be brightened.
Yeah.
but to be fair, on the point
frightened, I like
on,
that.
on the point of being brightened, the director did recognize it when she spoke to her outside the lighthouse in book one. You know, and if she knew Saul at that time, she would have recognized that same luminescence or otherwise between them. So she, again, that conversation with the director, I feel like I should go back and read that exchange again to kind of see what I can glean from it, from what I now know, because it feels like that was the one time when they had the two meeting in minds. The person that sort of sent her in there with a plan to the person that was sort of starting to figure an awful lot out. To your point, Varsha, of like our first guess was right. You know, again, that could be by design in some ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That she, whatever it was, that's all was giving her. And we only got a brief view of the conversation that she had with the crawler when she went down the tunnel, right? We don't know what happened after they greeted each other, after he said you shouldn't be here, in repetition of his old conversation, which again, like, could just be an echo, but an actual statement he made, or that it's him remembering her somehow. But yeah, there could have been more from that she learned about Area X. It's possible.
Shouldn't Gloria be a little bit more worried about Ghostbird? Because if Area X is sending out these doppelgangers and into the world, it seems everything Area X does is very deliberate, right?
Yeah.
So if you're sending out doppelgangers, you're intentionally sending out copies of these people. Shouldn't she be more afraid? Because it seems like they're almost like soldiers, right? That the Area X is sending out into the world to, and we know Ghostbird can create a doorway to Area X now. So shouldn't be? I don't know. I think she should be a little bit more worried about Ghostbird, knowing that she's a duplicate or she's a doppelganger. But
yeah, but she hasn't met her, right?
No.
The director hasn't met the doppelganger, but Grace should have been worried if she knew everything that the director knew.
oh, sorry, Grace.
Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe that's what you meant. Yeah. The what was I saying? Do you think, I just had a thought, the village or the town where Area X is, do you think that's just all doppelgangers? People, because what happened to, maybe not necessary, if when Area X happened, what happened to all the people who were there? Did they get doppelganger and they become this town?
But the people in Area X are all originals. The doppelgangers are all outside, and as far as we know, Ghostbird is the first doppelganger to go back in.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that
true.
right?
Yeah.
What?
Larry never went back in, as far as we know.
Laurie never went back
No, he
in.
didn't.
The director, we assume a doppelganger was created of her, so there were two of those out in the world when she went in and out.
I see.
Okay, that's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghostbird's the first one to actually go back in, and again, she is going back in to look for her husband because her grounding point is actually inside Area X as opposed to everybody else.
Same with Gloria. She kind of sort of went to look for her mom, I think.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yes, she did. So she's going back, and nobody goes back into Area X again from the outside. It seems to be.
Yeah, that has to mean something, or that there might be some consequence to that.
It might be that we just don't know. There was loads of them went back in, like, and there's been a lot of expeditions, etc. But I think I'm sort of coming to the idea through our that is a possibility that definitely makes sense in some ways. That limits the possibilities. Here's a question for everybody though. Nobody guessed that it was Grace in the lighthouse, right?
No idea. I was expecting the biologist, biologist's husband, but I think, that's one thing that I was happy to have confirmed, but I didn't like the big deal that was made out of it, because I think we already knew by this point that time moves differently in Area X. So we didn't need the whole build up to the reveal that it's been 3 years. When Control noticed that she had gray hair in her temples, I think, okay, she's been here a lot longer than you think. But maybe it wasn't meant to be a reveal to the readers, more to the characters, which
Yeah.
I can buy. Yeah. But
Hmm.
no clue that it was Grace. I also was like, I raged at the page when it was revealed that it was Grace, and then next chapter, Laurie. I don't care about Laurie. Let's go back to this thing that's
There is a
happening.
bit of that kind of frustration with the story
Yeah.
doesn't go where you want it to go in the next page. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long was okay? So when Area X expanded and the survivors from Southern Reach or the crews went into Area X, from that point to the point where Ghostbird created the doorway, how long was that? It wasn't very long. It was like a day, right?
A day, 2 days. Yeah.
So there was so does time move differently on the island or does it move differently in Area X? Otherwise, one day would be 3 years. And if one day is 3 years, then why haven't the people who have come back from Area X come back 3 years later?
So
Or
it's
I
maybe-
think
3
I would
years.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 years in Area X.
So the
But-
expeditions, right? If the expeditions go in and they spend a few days there, when they come back, Earth time should be 3 to 10 years later because they're there for a few days in Area X.
Yeah.
So if one day is about 3 years, then every expedition should take like 10 years.
I think it's actually the other way around. Less Earth time is more Area X/island time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I have it backwards. Yeah, you're right.
Sure, I had exactly the same thought though, Steve. I was like, that doesn't work. I thought that broke as well, but first, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
What I did think didn't work is that for the owl to be her husband, he had to be like several decades old, because
Hmm.
it had to be what, a year? I think it's about a year between when the 11th expedition was sent and the 12th expedition started. So a whole year, 2 weeks, I think, was 3 years. I think Ghostbird and Control said they spent 2 weeks there, right? So 2 weeks. Oh, no, they've only been here 2 weeks. Sorry, 1 day is 3 years, which means what? So hundreds of years now for
Yeah.
the owl. So that has to be, she has to be wrong about the owl being her husband then.
Yeah, I was going to say we just assumed that. She's assumed that. Again, I think you could argue that she was looking for that when she went looking on the island for somebody to respond to her. In this case, the owl. Like the
Yeah.
owl wasn't always akin to her. It was sort of like training a dog over a long time. Like she became
Yeah.
used to the owl and vice versa. But she has taken that to mean that must be her husband.
Mm.
That's
But
not necessarily the case.
also she does say something about how, okay, I think even if it's human lifespan, it's
Mhm.
way too many. But especially, like the gap between when Ghostbird returned and when they went back in, that is not nearly as much time as between the 11th expedition and 12th expedition. And already she's lived 30 years, she's died, Grace has been there for 3 years, and so on. So I think it has to be on the time scale of like hundreds of years, even if it's human. But she does say something, which again, this leads into the territory of first guesses being correct. But she does say something about whenever there is a phase shift every new moon day, the creatures, the humans who turn into the creatures that like dolphins and so on, become less human and become more absorbed into that creature. So maybe they just live a very long time, these transformed creatures. Because the owl lives 30 years apparently, and that's a lot longer than the time span I looked up. Sorry, Steve.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just my lizard brain is working overtime here. So, okay. So if 1 day Earth time is approximately 3 years Area X time, then the expeditions should walk in and come right back out. Earth time.
Yeah.
Right. They should be like within seconds. They'll walk in and come back. So, why does time work slower in Area X? So,
But it's not the original people that walk out.
but
It's
our time, though,
doppelgangers.
right?
Yeah, but it's the doppelgangers. So who knows at what time they come back? Whether it is 10 years, maybe they grow from birth to be that size, and then let go back in. Like we don't. Again, that's an assumption that we're making.
So I'm gonna go interstellar here for a second. So does time move differently in area X because of gravity? Because when you're next to a large object, time moves slower because it's
time dilation. Yeah.
The mass time slows for you. Even if you're standing next to like a large object, time will fractions of a second slower when you're next to a large object. So is that why? So is the tunnel massive, or an object in area X massive enough to slow time?
If that's the case, though, is it possible that time moves differently in different areas of area X? Does it all have to move concurrently? Like, does it have to be a 1 to 3 equation, or whatever the equation is? Is it fluid? Does it vary depending on where you are in area X?
Great point.
And to that point, that would also sort of explain the stars changing as well.
Oh,
because it's that light travels so far to get to that place. By the time actually something happens, it might be that everything's just shifted in the sky.
Oh.
It is.
Yeah, good book. We got to figure it out.
Don't need to read anymore. That's brilliant. That was the point of the whole podcast, wasn't it? We read a book until we've got it figured out, and then we can stop reading and move on to the next one. Isn't that exactly it?
We got to do the thing that man carrying thing does. But reading a book until something disturbing happens or something funny happens, and he stops within 20 seconds every time. What was I saying? Yeah, the other possibility, I think it's building on top of what you guys said already, is the gate is some sort of like wormhole thing onto another planet, and and as just near a sun that's a lot bigger than, interstellar. Basically, it's near Gargantua.
The Forever War. It's all of those time dilation kind of things, but that gravity. Oh,
yeah. But the thing is, how does it descend? Something like that. How does it descend upon Saul through dreams and through a sliver of light? Yeah. Because it's really interesting that he had that dream about the stars shifting and so on. Like he's become the gate somehow, or maybe the.
Okay, so I'm gonna go again. On
Yes.
theory, right? So what happens when light moves through a lens?
It becomes warped, right?
The fraction.
Well, and it either slows down or speeds up.
Oof.
So the whole thing of the traveling between two lines actually could also tie into this theory as well, and through Saul, etc., of the exploding out of the lens.
Nice.
I can't believe this can't possibly be right, because this is quite scientific and heady to be like what is a light sci-fi novel for the most part. It is. But I did say this as I was saying to my sister, and she was like, "Oh, sci-fi, I don't read sci-fi." And I was like, "I think you can read Southern Reach because it's not heavy sci-fi. Although if this is the end of it, it is."
So
yeah.
Explain the theory some more, Chris. So the light speeds up or slows down. So we're going back to how photons don't experience
the speed of photons or whatever you're going to do. So if it is, say, a gateway between two worlds, like the island and the two lighthouses and the lens, you could, if you're traveling from one to the other, be traveling a very long distance or a very short distance, depending on what way the lens works in terms of speeding up and slowing down time. And then link that to like the wormholes, for instance, that the Ghostbird and Control go through. They could have been traveling in that wormhole for a long time, for a short time, anything like that. If that is really how they're traveling through lens to be dropped into Area X.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I like that.
I don't think it's right, but the lens has become such a prominent part of the story now, rather than the lighthouse.
Yeah. The lens has all the answers.
The lens. It's not the button.
Lens.
It's not the tunnel. It's not the reed monster.
It's not the hatch.
Not the owl. It's not the hatch. It's the
Not the smoke
lens.
monster.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know. I'm trying to think. We need to watch Lost and have like
Yes.
a year-long conversation about it.
Oh,
Oh
my
my.
god! I think my brain might explode.
I just rewatched it, but if you started like I don't know 6 months later or something, I have some thoughts on the last few seasons, but overall enjoy.
Most people do.
Yeah, yeah. That'd be
We
a fun
haven't
talk.
we haven't even got to part 2 of this, but we've been going for an hour
No.
on this, and we haven't even got to the biologist story.
Oh yeah, we haven't. I mean, I guess we talked about
little
it
bit.
in
A
A
little
little
parts,
bit, a
yeah.
little bit.
There was
Because the owl was in part 2. So
oh yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, but I want to start us off with something that will tie us into the biology
Okay, good.
story, I promise. But the dream that Saul has about Henry growing larger.
Mhm.
What? Yeah, a smile on his face that kept growing larger until it curled off the edges of his jaw. That's hilarious. Oh my god. I think Henry is the super intriguing character for how little we get of him. I'm super mystified by him. And God said, "Let there be light." God said that's all, and he has come from so far away, and his home is gone, but his purpose remains. Would you deny him his new kingdom? So is that also giving us clues to what Area X is? Is it some yeah, I guess the tunnel is God then by this reasoning. Is that or whatever Henry is calling God?
is that you said that was in a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah. That could just be Saul's upbringing infusing itself on his brain and giving an answer that a comfort answer he needed to some sort.
It's a dream,
Fair
but it
enough.
could be the future. It could be,
Yeah. So
Also, if you look at somebody through a lens, they can appear to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger as well. Just going to put that out there.
nice. And the thing with the mirrors in Lowry's room.
Mm.
What do you think of the
That's-
fact that sorry, I promised to move on to the biologist, but what do you think it's so creepy that he has those replicas of Area X that which is again very interesting because Area X imposes itself on you if you just so much as read things related to it. You read Whitby's document, you read the crawlers lines, all of those people are terrified to do that because they're worried that they are imbibing Area X somehow. But Laurie's got this like whole damn replica going and it does nothing. It does not.
Yeah.
Well, if Lowry's is a duplicate, then
Hmm.
it wouldn't have to do anything to him. He's already a duplicate.
Oh, but it's
Right.
not doing anything to Gloria or
Oh.
Severance, apparently.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. We'll come back to talk about Severance, but we should talk about the biologist first. The
Just a model.
the yes, so connecting Henry to whatever the biologist was going through, she says that there is a presence that she notices on the island, right? And also when she finds the seeker and surveillance bandits, that's hilarious. But when she when she finds their documents, she thinks that it has one new person who has like a whole other agenda and has turned it around when they joined. I think we're meant to think that it's Henry because of the dreams that Saul is seeing and how
Hmm.
and whatever's going on with him. But I have a theory that Suzanne and Severance are related somehow. Is that true? Like, would that be a thing? What is Severance's deal in all of this? Oh,
Wait, remind me what's Severance again? Who's Severance?
is Control's mother, and she was
Oh, right.
there when Lowry.
We don't know it's Control's mother, do we? We assume that it's Control's mother.
I mean, are we not believing Control when we were in his head?
Oh,
And
well, we told his mom was called Severance, were we?
I think so, Jackie Severance. Or do you think it's some other
Oh
Severance?
no! If that was said, I don't know. Again, the There's too many things happening in this book. I just sort of said they pulled in this older woman called Severance, and it was like we're meant to assume that it was Control's mom. But if it was told in book 2 that was her name, then
I
okay.
think so. I think I'm pretty sure that her name is Severance, but I could be wrong. I'll look it up right now. But yeah, like if there's if it's not, then I don't know what.
I mean, it almost
Jackie
certainly
Severance.
is anyway.
Yeah. Jack Severance and Jackie Severance.
There we
Those-
go.
All
yeah.
right, yeah.
There we go.
And here's Severance 75. Yeah. Yeah, it would be weird to introduce some new random character. Then I'd agree with you that this was unnecessary.
I am just being very careful of assumptions. I am
That
just
makes
because
sense.
we have made so many throughout this entire series that I'm like, oh my god! It seems like every time you read a chapter, you assume something because you're trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. So Jackie Severance. Here he calls her by
Right,
name
okay.
Jackie. And okay, I won't start a new topic, sorry. But but yes, so
Well-
the present. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's the question I had when this section with Ghostbird, called what's it called again? Fixed Light.
Mhm.
When does this all happen?
Oh, so do you mean what is the timeline that she has written in, or
Yeah, I was a little confused about that.
I assume this is still her diary that she was writing from book 1.
From book 1.
From book 1, yes. So she never came back. Her Ghostbird came back, but she stayed there.
So this is the biologist, the original biologist's
Biologist, yeah.
diary. Okay, all right.
I think,
I had
well,
to-
again, I assume.
I had to get that down. All
no?
right.
I think you're right. So the end of the first section, Range Light, Grace has a sheaf of papers which she declares is the last will and testament of the biologist, and the next section is
Right.
this document,
Okay, all
which
right.
I think is what Grace was holding in her hand. But why did she call it the will and testament? Because she's not willing anything. Is it just the last document anybody writes is considered their will and testament?
I think this is the diary. The diary that Belle just said she was keeping. You
I
Mm.
hope not, because I could write something really dumb. But
An email, new phone, who this? That's what.
Oh, if that appears in this book, I'm going to be so annoyed.
There's one section in the biologist's last will and testament here that that kind of sums up this whole trilogy. In that it says this mind or these minds asked questions that did not seem interested in hasty answers, did not care if one question birthed 6 more, and if in the end none of these 6 questions led to anything concrete. I read that and I was like, he's messing with us, Vandermeer.
He wants us to be
He
like
just
that.
described what his readers have been going through for 2.5 books here. And I was like, you dink.
So
I'm a little aggravated with Mr. Vandermeer right now because of that line.
Too on the nose. Too much.
Too on the nose, yeah.
yeah. So
Love that.
do you think the mind being referenced there is either of Henry or Suzanne? And by the way, do we know which of them is the science and which of them was the seance in that pair? Was Suzanne the scientist?
No, I thought they spelled that out when they were with Saul. I thought they determined which one was the. I think Henry was a scientist and Suzanne was the
Okay,
seance,
okay.
the seance person. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, that is interesting. And
So
I
much
don't
happening.
what?
There's so much happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
see if
much.
it turns out the owl wasn't her husband and we wasted 30 pages on her relationship with the random owl. That'd be properly trolling.
It is in some ways, if you think about it, I think that's exactly the kind of relationship she wanted with her husband. Right?
Yeah.
All the things that she was annoyed at. Like, you ask me to talk about my feelings, and I don't like that. The owl doesn't talk. It doesn't say anything.
That is
And
true.
it just brings her food.
It's sadly true.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was interesting. That it felt like the kind of relationship she wanted with her husband. So, yeah, I do think, based on the timing thing, that thinking of the owl as her husband is just wishful thinking. But who knows? Who knows how time works for the transformed animals? Maybe they just live for hundreds of years.
It does seem convenient that she made that connection with that thing or that person.
Hmm.
Seems a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
You never had an owl drop you a filet mignon on
No.
your plate? No,
Well, not yet. I mean, I'm
not yet.
I'm
yeah.
only 45.
Hope lives eternal, right?
Time yet.
Nice things could happen for you.
You never know.
See if I see an owl tomorrow, I'm gonna start videoing. Right, I'm just gonna get my phone straight out tomorrow, and I'll be like, "Here it comes."
Here it comes.
You also have to bring it rats.
Yeah.
She does.
Well, we'll just say in the video what would have happened if I had brought up rats.
I mean, it's a small price to pay.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Jesus. Oh, I think we're losing the plot.
Oh,
Was I don't know, I think we did talk about everything that the biologist had said. And she did for 30 years,
Yes, she did.
which is insane.
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So, yeah, that now it's like, okay, part 3. Like, what are we in for here?
Yeah. Because this is the last part, isn't it? It's straight
Mhm.
through to the end from here. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about why was Grace so upset when Control called her by name? I thought that was very interesting how she reacted. And then, when Ghostbird called her by name, she didn't complain again, but she said, "Shouldn't you already know? And don't ever use my name. No names. It may still know names."
Mm.
I guess it is Area X, but why would its knowing of names do anything? Is that
The eternal question, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're falling into Vandermeer's trap and
Yeah.
asking those 6 extra questions. No, that's a good question. Because I mean, this whole series has been about names and so, yeah, does Grace know something about that naming conventions that humans have that
Mhm.
Area X might not want to know, that she might not want Area X to know about, or is, she might just be guessing, but she might just be being overly careful, or maybe she's onto something. Who knows?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Henry and this thing with names are what's making me most curious right now. What is everyone else most curious about?
Yeah, I mean, the Gloria's got 4 names, so it's
Yeah, that's true.
Gloria, Cynthia, director, psychologist? No,
Yes.
those aren't.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
yeah, pretty good.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. One other minor thing. Grace very quickly just shot the other psychologist on sight. Do we believe her?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
What reasons would you have to lie?
Yeah.
She ran about the 3
I think
years.
so.
There's lots of
Wait, but if she needed to shoot doppelgangers, or if Grace and the director between them did not like doppelgangers, or knew how to figure out whether or not something is a doppelganger,
Mm.
are we to think that Whitby is a doppelganger that they deliberately allowed to live, or that he isn't?
Hmm.
Well, it kind of shows that they don't have a surefire way of figuring out doppelgangers from real people.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, it seems very clear to us now that Whitby was a doppelganger because of the creepy head.
Or did he?
thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because his story, Whitby's story, was that he killed his doppelganger.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
are we saying that he didn't, and his doppelganger's lying to us, who was the psychologist? I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't
I
feel like
agree.
a psychologist.
I feel like I'm getting my degree by reading these 3 books. I feel like I should come out with a qualification at the end of this.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's I don't know. Somebody needs to remind me how or why Grace is on this island. I don't remember. Like, how did she get here? Why has she been living here for 3 years? When did she decide to go in?
I think when when the border expanded, she had instructions to, but I don't know if it had already taken over the southern reach, and whatever she could access of the buildings, she went there to grab supplies. She put together, what we do know is that she put together some sort of troop, and they all started wandering within Area X together. She's the last of them left alive, and she's been living there for 3 years. But I don't know if they went from outside to in deliberately when the border expanded, or if
Oh, okay.
they were encompassed within the border
Maybe, yeah,
and they were at Southern Reach. They took whatever
That's
supplies
right,
they needed
yeah.
and then went in.
that's right. Yeah, because there was some mention of an evacuation before, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
it was expanding. Okay, yeah, all right, that makes sense.
And has the basement where they kept the scientific supplies, has that become a tunnel now? Is that
Ooh.
a thing? Like, did she say that? Or am I imagining that? I forget. But anyway, lots of questions. Hopefully, some answers.
Lots of questions.
Lots of
Yeah.
all the questions.
Yeah.
And there's a 4th book coming, so I know we probably shouldn't expect too many answers though, right?
I don't know. Was this meant to be a trilogy that he's expanding with one more book, or did he always mean to write a 4th book? Because I feel like that could change things.
I don't know, because it, like, all 3 of these books were published in the same year.
Mm.
So they definitely were meant to go together.
Mm.
And having a 4th book come out, was it 8 years later now?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. No, he's already told us that none of these answers lead to anything concrete, so we're doomed. It says right here.
No.
It says it right
Yeah.
in the book.
Underlined.
So it looks like Vandermeer said, I didn't plan to write a new novel in the Southern Reach series, which is now a quartet. I was happy to be finished and done with it a decade ago, although there was always a few ideas about Area X that wouldn't leave me alone. So it was intended to be a trilogy, but he wanted to add a 4th. So
Right.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is he's now actually a doppelganger.
yes.
The doppelganger wants to write the 4th novel. I get it. I get
People
it.
were starting to question if he was Jeff Vandermeer anymore, and he says, I know how I'll shut them up. I'll write a 4th book in the Southern Reach trilogy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do
With that, are we ready to talk about Mechanopolis, and maybe Jarrod, the Mechanopo head, could start us off?
I've read that. For anybody who doesn't know, in our little thing, he has a little subtitle on his name of Mechanopolis head, but I read it as poo head, so it's okay.
That's okay.
So,
Yeah. Miguel de Unamuno.
Unamuno. So we have another writer who has changed factions multiple times and
Yeah.
was a nationalist at some point, and I guess they wrote the same kind of story too about the dangers of technology.
Yeah.
Or at least the same kind of story was picked. Sorry, Jared, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please go
No,
ahead.
you're right. You're right. It was just a simple little, was it 3 or 4 page thing about the dangers of technology. He this guy slept. He slept and he walking around this place that's all technologically driven. And the key phrase that stood out to me was right on the second page, I think, whatever it was. He says, "Let's see where this ends up." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he's basically saying at that point, let's see where the human race ends up after all this technological innovation. That's what he's
Nice.
telling us. And so he gives us this short little cautionary tale about technology getting a little out of hand, and he's rushing like a madman on electric trams and stuff, what have you, and crying about it. And
Reading about it.
And then wishing he was in some sweet Christian paradise instead at the end. And I don't know. I get his. I like his little questioning about where the human race is going to go with all technology. But other than that, I found it a little silly at the end. But that was just me.
So the question is, it appears that he dies.
Yeah.
And is reborn. So obviously he's not human anymore.
Mm.
He doesn't realize it.
He's a doppelganger.
He's a doppelganger. You guessed it. Or machine or human. And that's what's happened to the entire human race, is that basically they have all died. And the waypoint that they get birthed at is this oasis.
Mm.
But he doesn't realize it because he still thinks, oh, I'm a man, I'm going to look for other men. But all he sees are not men because
He's a robot.
Haven't invented mirrors yet in the future. So he don't know.
Yeah. I like that line. He's face to face with the race that dominated the dehumanized Earth.
Yep.
That was interesting. Yeah, I don't know if he died or not, but he awoke from a blow and he found himself in an oasis. So yeah, maybe he did die. Maybe the blow killed him and he found himself in heaven or whatever.
This was probably written in 1910 or something, but he basically respawned back at the base, right? He's basically playing Call of Duty or something, right? And he's he's died and he picked a spawn point, and it happens to be the place with all the fruits and the water. And back he goes, and he goes again. He goes, I'm going to live my best life.
Yeah.
So he's like in a heaven, right? Is that because he died? I would assume. And so it's kind of like he went to hell and then he went into heaven. It's kind of the way
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, I think. Yeah.
So hell is all the machines?
Heaven
There's
was
one there.
Yeah, heaven is there's not a single machine to be found. Yeah.
Interesting.
So what do you make of the fact that a story about the dangers of technology apparently has only machines that run themselves and there are no humans around? Is it about how machines take away jobs? Is that what that is? Or like, how is the existence of machines negating humans? The commentary on technology being bad for you or machines being bad for you, because like I don't think it's
I think for me, the reading of the story is that at a certain point, you are not able to tell the difference. You know, at a certain point, like I think certainly now, I think we can agree that machines and technology and all of that kind of stuff has become our life for a lot of people. Like if you certainly look at the younger generations, they're so entrenched in it that they don't know any different. You know, that's very much the thing. And I think in this case, because I think he is a robot at the end, I think he is not aware that life has superseded him and become completely technological, and they are all machines, and that they are all, and yet he's still holding on to the idea, oh, I'm not going to let that, you know, as a lot of people were like, let's go back to the war. The war was the best time that it was to be alive and all of that kind of stuff, when people aren't really accepting that they're living in a different place and that it actually is better or not, because you can't die. You know, you can't, you can get sustenance whenever you want. You can basically respawn back at the oasis and get all the fruits and water that you want in life. Everything's there for them that want it. So yeah, that's my reading of it, is that you won't actually know that there's a change, that your life has been overtaken by technology, and that you are part of the technology in a lot of ways and embrace parts of it and not others.
That'd be quite prescient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Consider it. That's how a lot of things are today. But
yeah. So that was my question about the story, because a story about the dangers of technology written today would probably, be like one of Ken Liu's stories from I think there was one in The Hidden Girl. No, sorry, The Paper Menagerie, that had that talked about, like, basically, technology dictating, some AIs dictating to you how you should live, like what decisions you should make and so on. So, and I think that's what the post computer science, post machine learning warning of the dangers of technology all look like, featuring like AIs will take over your life, or they, like, you'll lose your jobs, or they'll manipulate you into doing what you don't want to do. So this was a very interesting story to read as a warning, because I didn't see the warning. I don't know what the warning is. I couldn't read into it other than, what you said, that we can't tell the difference. But I do wonder whether that interpretation is coming from how we are living our lives now with technology, or if that was what was meant in the story as well.
Yeah, I mean, science fiction has been warning us about technology for well over 100 years now, ever since Frankenstein, really. And so it's nothing new nowadays for science fiction to warn us about the dangers of technology. I mean, we talked about it during Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? We talked about it then. So that's it's easy to read it now, even, and get that out of it, because it's really a common theme.
Yeah.
Trying to find the day or the year it was written. It looks like it's 1897, from what I could find, which is pretty amazing. I think it's a universal thing that we all need human contact. We all need some kind of, and we shouldn't depend too much on machines or industrial. I guess back then it was probably more of the Industrial Revolution. We shouldn't depend on that so much that we have that replace humans and human contact, and the importance of appreciating that human contact. But I do think, because of the last couple of lines, that it was more of it would be hell. It would be like a purgatory to live in a world full of robot or like machines. So, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild that what a story written over 100 years ago can still.
Yeah. And with technology, and it seems valid, like with technology completely different from what he's written about here, right? Like he's written about, like, there aren't any robots or AI here, but all the machines that move themselves and get you from place to place. I don't think his issue is with the machine so much as the fact that there are no humans around, which basically, I guess to your point, Chris, is maybe that you can't tell the difference anymore. Maybe machines take away the human connection, which the technology of today very much does, right? Sometimes.
That's true.
So I I like that you can also read into it, interpret it for today's technology rather than what he wrote about then.
It's a story that's impossible to read without a modern lens view at it. Like,
Yeah.
it's impossible to conceive that this was written when it was and what the world looked like then, and that he was talking about something probably completely different, you know?
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Which is also interesting. Like, if you didn't know going in, if you hadn't read the author's introduction and didn't know going in that this was a story about the dangers of technology, would you have read it that way?
I didn't. I read it the other way around. So I read the story first and then read the
Okay.
the thing. So
Was that your default interpretation then, like without knowing what it was about?
well, it is colored by the fact that I think a lot of these stories are in chronological order. So I sort of knew that it was going to be early sci-fi, but But it did. But by the time I got towards the end of the story, I was like, "This is crazy." Like, a lot of these stories are completely crazy that he's not talking about what is happening in the world today.
I think that just goes to show that the human species and humanity doesn't change that much as animals, as what we are, and so we're always afraid of the unknown, and we're always afraid of new things and other, or just technologies we don't understand, and stuff like that. And even when we do understand them, there's still this slight area of unknown that we're afraid of, and as a species, and so that is always going to be relatable on some level.
Yeah, I like that. Steve, are you saying something earlier? Sorry.
Oh no, I'm just gonna. It's like, just to kind of, I think Jarrod hit the point, is that we don't change very much. Really, we like to think we do, but we haven't changed very much.
Yeah.
Those base fears and needs and wants haven't really changed much. We like to think they have, but they really haven't.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess reading some of these super early stories is sort of reinforcing that thought quite a bit. Cool. Any other thoughts before we close this episode out?
Nope.
Fun
story.
Yeah, it was a good story. I did enjoy it, and it did beat out what is it? The New Overworld as the shortest story that we've read so far. So
that's why it's a good story.
Yeah.
Keep it short.
Yeah, it's better than the rabbits, I think.
Oh yeah, I did. That's true. Did you read the rabbit story, Steve? I forget, but was Steve? I think Steve wasn't there for the rabbit story, right? Because
I think
it
you
was
missed that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was an interesting one too. But yeah. So if you've been listening along with us for next week, we're going to be reading half of whatever's left of Acceptance. I don't know what the chapter numbers are yet, but we'll post it in the episode description. And the short story for next week is, I just had it here, The Doom of Principal City by Yefim Zozulia. I would very much doubt that this is available as PDF, but if you can find it, I'll post it in the description. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in a week. Bye.